Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. A couple weeks ago I did a video on my egg white baking mix where I just put together as many of the ingredients as I could in a mix so it would cut down on how many things I had to pull out of the pantry when I was making my egg white bread. And in that video I also showed my butter bun base where I put together a little bit different of a mix that I have been using for my butter buns. That recipe has become very popular and people seem to be loving it. But since that video, I have made some adjustments to my bun base mix. The most notable of them is that I have taken out the xanthan gum. I discovered I had issues with xanthan gum, and so I have found that gelatin in its place works really, really well. So my new bun base has gelatin instead of xanthan gum. The other difference in the mix is that I reduced the arrowroot powder down to 1 tablespoon per batch from 2 tablespoons. I have been using the acacia fiber in my buns recently, which I wasn't doing that when I did my original butter bun recipe, but I'm finding that I really like the acacia fiber addition. That's not something that's in the mix, it's what I add at the end, so you won't see that in the mix. But since that's been a new thing that I've added to my recipes, I found that I didn't need the whole 2 tablespoons of arrowroot starch to get a really good taste and a really good texture. So to save on the carbs, I just cut the arrowroot in half and just do 1 tablespoon per batch rather than 2. So because of the new formulation of the bun base, I wanted to go ahead and make a dedicated video for it. And so I'm going to mix that up for you guys. And then I am going to use it to make my butter bun 2.0 recipe. I've gotten such incredible feedback on the original recipe. Lots of people are loving it. And I know a lot of people are having really good success with it. But with the addition of the acacia fiber that I kind of discovered after I did that recipe, I think that even more people will be able to have success with this recipe. I have had some feedback from people saying that they've gotten not a great texture. So it's the kind of recipe that seems like it's more sensitive to environmental factors and different things. And I think that with the addition of the acacia fiber, it's going to help more people get a better result. So if you're one of those that uses the original recipe and are having great results with it, then there's no reason to switch. But I'm hoping that this butter bun 2.0 recipe will just give better results to more people. I have my giant mixing bowl because I want to have a lot of room to get all of the ingredients really mixed up. The last thing you want is a big chunk of cream of tartar or salt in your mix. So I'm just going to start out by measuring 1,000 grams into my bowl. And I definitely recommend using a kitchen scale. Without a kitchen scale, you are definitely not guaranteed to get the same results in end product that I show in my videos. And then of course, egg white bread is always like a scientific experiment. There's always some kind of variable involved, just a different kitchen with different ingredients and all that. You always run the risk of getting some kind of a different result than what is shown. But I do my best to try to give you as much detail as possible so you can get as close as possible. And one of the most important things is measuring by weight rather than by volume. Alright, that is 1,000 grams, and nothing really makes me feel like a bodybuilder more than using one of these giant containers. Next ingredient is 5 teaspoons of cream of tartar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 teaspoons of salt. Of course, I prefer Redmond real salt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next is 80 grams of arrowroot powder, or arrowroot starch, or arrowroot flour. They're all the same thing. Next is allulose, and I'm going to do 180 grams. Last ingredient is the beef gelatin, and I have been doing 1 tablespoon per recipe, and that's 10 grams. A tablespoon is 10 grams, so for 10 recipes it would be 100 grams. Okay, now I'm gonna take some time to really get this mixed thoroughly, and that will be it. It will be ready to go. Of course, when you're making a dry mix for egg white bread, you cannot mix anything in at this point that has any fat in it. So anything like that I add to my recipes, like coconut milk powder or butter powder or olive oil powder, anything like that, I always save and add that separately at the end. So if you make the mix exactly like I have made it here, that means it's 140 grams of mix per recipe. If you do omit the arrowroot powder, then it would be 132 grams of mix per recipe. All right, that's looking pretty good. So my bun base container here is already pretty full because I made a new batch not too long ago, but I'll fill it up the rest of the way. And then I am going to make a batch of my butter buns 2.0. So a lot of people have been loving the butter bun recipe. I've gotten so much good feedback about it, but there is still a group of people that are having trouble with it. And it seems like it's one of the recipes that is a little bit more prone to getting a bad texture, depending on whatever environmental factors are involved. And so I wanted to work on the recipe a little bit more just to try to make it more friendly to the most people. Of course, if you're getting great results with the original recipe, then no need to change things up. But I have found that the acacia fiber really gives a great texture to my buns. And so I have my 2.0, Butter Buns 2.0. That makes me feel like Wendy from Loving It on Keto, talking about a recipe 2.0. But with the addition of the acacia fiber, along with the butter powder at the end of the recipe, I think it's more likely that more people will be getting a good texture with these. And I just love the doughy consistency that the acacia fiber gives to the recipes. Also, the gelatin gives a great texture. So I think this Butter Buns 2.0 is going to be a big win. First thing I'm going to do is add 1 teaspoon of honey to the bowl, and then 1 1/4 cups of warm water. It shouldn't be scalding, just warm to the touch. And I'm going to get the honey dissolved in here. Now I'm going to sprinkle 1 teaspoon of yeast over the top of the water. And as always, the yeast and the honey are optional ingredients. They don't affect the texture of the buns. They just add some flavor, so you can't omit those if you want. You can also substitute a teaspoon of inulin for the honey if you want something that's sugar-free. But theoretically, the yeast should eat the honey, so you won't be consuming all of the carbohydrates, the sugar from the honey in the finished product. I'm just gonna let this sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, and that will let the yeast bloom a little bit. While the yeast is blooming, I'll show you my pan. It's a silicone bun mold. I put a little bit of parchment paper underneath just so it doesn't make the pan too messy. Since this recipe has a lot of fat in it, or a fair amount of fat in it, I don't find that the batter sticks to the pan very badly. Some people have reported that their pans stick really bad. So spray your pans if you have a pan that seems to stick badly. I'm gonna leave mine unsprayed. I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 325. Oops. There we go. All right, now I'm going to add my 140 grams of bun base to the bowl. And I will also have this recipe written out without using the mix, so individual ingredients. So if you don't want to mix up the bun base, you can still find that recipe. Get my mixer ready. I'm going to start it out on low and slowly increase the speed until I'm at full speed, and then I will mix it for 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes it's done by 3 minutes, sometimes it takes 5 minutes. going to add my 1 teaspoon of butter flavor, butter extract. I like the Olive Nation brand. This, of course, is an optional ingredient. It just kind of enhances the butter flavor, which is what we're going for. And then while the batter was mixing up, I put together my 1/4 cup or 24 grams of butter powder and my 3 tablespoons or 18 grams of acacia fiber powder. Just mix that up a little bit. I'm going to throw that in. And I'm just going to mix this on low until it's combined. I don't want to whip it at this point. All right, I'm going to mix it with my spatula a little bit just to make sure everything is off the sides of the bowl. And then I'm going to divide it into my 8 bun wells. My oven is preheated, so I'm going to throw these in for 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes of cook time, I'm going to be brushing the tops with butter and then sprinkling with a little bit of flake salt, and then they'll bake for a little bit longer. So I just got my butter melted. It's 3 tablespoons, and then the sea salt flakes to taste. It's been 15 minutes and these are just starting to brown. And of course, I had to use my butter oven mitt. Now I'm just going to quickly brush the tops of these with butter. I have 3 tablespoons here, and then I will sprinkle with a little bit of flake salt. All right, back in the oven these go for 10 more minutes. Oh my goodness, look at how delicious these look. Oh, and they smell so good. I wish you guys could smell these. Absolutely amazing. So I'm going to let these cool in the pan for about 5 minutes before I take them out. They're already pulling away from the side, so they could probably come out pretty quick. But the last step that you can take just to put these over the top is take a little bit of the butter powder and sprinkle it. Let's see, I'm going to do this. Sprinkle it over the top, just a tiny bit. It really, woo, it doesn't take much. Just, you know, it's that butter, strong butter flavor that's just going to hit your tongue first when you take a bite, and it's just delicious. And it kind of gives that flour effect, like fresh baked rolls that still have a little flour on them. Very good. All right, let's go ahead and pull these out. That's what they look like. Bottoms have that nice texture there. Oh, so good. I could like devour 3 of these right now. Let's go ahead and break one of these open so you can see the inside texture. So these buns have a little bit denser of a texture. They remind me a lot of refrigerator biscuits. Not the flakiness like a layered biscuit, but just like the doughy, bready biscuits. When you bite into it, it like mushes down and you get this really incredible doughy texture in your mouth. These buns are just out of this world. They are one of my absolute favorite things. The recipe I think is incredible for bun shapes. I don't like it as much for a loaf because it does have that doughiness. Like when you bite into it, you want to have a lot of crust and not as much of the dough area in the middle. And with a loaf, it's kind of just like too much dough in the middle. So I don't necessarily recommend it for loaves. So since these do have some similarities to a biscuit, you can use them like as biscuits and gravy or anywhere else that you would use like a breakfast biscuit or something. They're absolutely amazing for that. As far as the bun base mix, I so far have, I think, 3 recipes that work great with this bun base, and I am going to get them all typed up and on my recipe blog so that if you do mix up this base, you'll have at least 3 recipes to work with. But I am planning to use this bun base for a lot of other things as well, including stuff like pizza crusts, works great for pizza crusts. So definitely look forward to more recipes using this bun base. But of course, I always write my recipes with the ingredients individualized as well. So if you don't want to make the bun base, you totally have the option to do that also. Real quick, as far as storage on the buns, I will keep them on the counter in an airtight container for maybe like 2 days. They usually get eaten up pretty fast, so that's often all that's needed. If I want to keep them longer, I'll put them in the fridge for like a week. They do freeze, so you can freeze them and then just defrost them in the fridge. Don't try to defrost them in the microwave. They'd probably get a weird texture. But I did want to mention that they do start to get wet on the top after they've been stored. That's just a hallmark of things made with egg whites. But I have found that if I take one of the buns and throw it in my air fryer on about 300 degrees for 1 minute, and I throw it in there cold, so it has the whole preheat cycle plus the 1 minute of cook time at 300 degrees, they come out nearly identically to how they come out of the oven. They're just like crispy on the outside, soft and pillowy on the inside, and they're just perfect. Thanks so much for joining me in the kitchen today. I hope you enjoyed the bun base plus the Butter Buns 2.0. Let me know if you try these and what you think. Hope you guys are all doing great, and I will see you again in another video.